Hello, how are you? My name is Shamele Jordon, and I'm the host of Genealogy Quick Start. Genealogy Quick Start is available on YouTube and Facebook and PhillyCam, which is the home of Genealogy Quick Start. Thank you, subscriber, for subscribing to Genealogy Quick Start. You help us to look good, so thank you. And if you're not a subscriber, please go ahead and subscribe to the YouTube channel and like us on Facebook. New to Genealogy Quick Start are show notes. Show notes are available at Genealogy Quick Start tv.blogspot.com. And what show notes are, basically, they're an outline of the show. They detail the records, the books, the quick start that we created. And also from the quick notes, you can join the mailing list. So make sure that you go ahead and join the mailing list. This will help you to stay up to date with what's going on in the Genealogy Quick Start community. Welcome to the show. I see you guys coming in. Please make sure you tell us where you are. I see 8, 9, 10 more folks in there. Where are you? Please let us know where you are. Today is a special show for me, as they all are, but no, today is actually an extra special show because I am fulfilling a promise to myself. And that promise was get Franklin Carter Smith. I met Frank exactly a year ago in Houston at the Texas State Genealogical Society conference. And I'll tell you more about that later. But today I want to make sure that you remember my buddies. You guys remember my buddies? My buddies, Michael John Neill, who is Genealogy Quick Start of the, what is it? Question of the day?
Question of the day.
Of the day.
Sorry, I was having a snack while you were talking.
That's okay. And my buddy, columnist, author Jim Beidler. How are you guys today?
I'm good. I'm good.
I already had my snack, but that's okay.
You're on Eastern time.
That's right.
So we have folks in here, and guess what? The first person isn't Gary. I'm kind of worried. So somebody check on Gary Franklin. We have Judy here from Chicagoland. Hello, Tiara from Maryland. Hi, Bonnie from Long Island, as well as Kim from California, Southern California. It's like South Jersey. I'm from South Jersey, and Kim is from Southern California. And we have Wanda Looney from Alabama. How are you, Wanda? And Khalid Omar from St. Louis. We have June, who's here from New Hampshire. Hello, June. So let's go ahead and, guys, this is how I know that you guys are like real genealogists, because you guys threw me a soft curve on a topic for the day. And I was like, that sounds like, it's not enough to talk about. But you guys showed me I don't know what the hell I'm talking about. So today, you guys suggested a fantastic topic, city directories. Why did you guys think of city directories? What's so special about city directories?
Well, they're one of those documents that every year, the census is every 10 years. You only get one death certificate usually. But, a city directory, especially in urban areas, they're usually every year, so it's a way to kind of track migrations and job changes and things of that type.
Yes. So let's go ahead and get started with our quick start for the day, which is city directories. And the reason why I think I was a little soft on city directories is because really, my people were country folks, but I do have some city folks. And so I'm looking forward to getting some pretty cool tips from you guys on city directories. So let's go ahead and do the quick start for city directories. So step 1 is determine a place and a time, right? So we all have to have a place and a time, which Beidler has coined the crosshairs in genealogy. So that's step 1. Step 2, we have as research the census for clues. So what's up with researching the census for clues? Let me see. I think you gave me a nice little example of that. Let's bring that up.
Well,
Why
and
are you doing that, Jim?
as Michael pointed out, uh, city directories during their heyday were every year, whereas the census is once in a decade snapshot. It usually has more total information than the city directories. But because of having that more total information, it's good to try to ground yourselves in that once in a decade thing before you go to the more granular approach of the city directories. And here we do have from 1880, we have the Hiller family, who happen to be my only urban family. I'm all Pennsylvania Dutch farmers, other than these second wave Germans who came to Reading, Pennsylvania. And one of the interesting things about this one is they list a daughter who would have been born when the mother was 60 years old. Well, it turns out it's their granddaughter. But this tells a lot of good information about Henry Hiller, his wife Mary, this actual granddaughter Mary. Says that Henry's a laborer. It says that both of them were born in Württemberg, as well as the granddaughter's parents in Württemberg. So this grounds them in Reading, Pennsylvania in 1880.
Okay. So we have them in 1880. We're looking at the census. So what clues did you say we're getting out of this?
Their birthplaces and placing them in Reading, Pennsylvania itself, giving you the place of the time and place crosshairs.
Okay, so then you have for step 2 is then let's go ahead and search the city directory. So what do we have here?
Yeah, well, for Reading, as it turns out, MyHeritage has the larger collection online. And here, 1881, the year after the census, we have Henry shown as a janitor, and we show his exact address as 338 Spring Garden, presumably Spring Garden Street. So that gives us a specific address in Reading, Pennsylvania.
Okay.
And then if we continue on, we go to 1884. And then here we pick up the information that Henry is only listed by reference. The listing is under Mary Hiller, widow of Henry. It's still at the same address, so we know it's not just similarly named people. These are the exact people. So then here we have it, that we're going to expect that Henry is dead by 1884. And one tip to point out is the date of the directory is the date that the directory was in use. They were usually compiled the year before. So the implication from this is that probably Henry dies in 1883.
Okay, that's what I love about these. You could see it like year by year by year. Love that. And then so it was step 3 would be to go ahead and search the rest of the directory. So what is this? A reverse directory?
This is a reverse directory. This one's from Boston in 1813. In some cities, you'll find them later. Not every city directory has one of these, but like any directory, there's who knows what in the back of it, and you always want to take a look, even if we do a text-based search and we don't find the names in the back. Still look in the back to see what's there. This is a reverse directory, which means it's got the list, and they're listed by address. And this is before we had house numbers, because we're talking Boston 1813 here. But you can see who the neighbors are. This one starts at South Bennett Street, beginning at Orange Street on the north side, as it says. And then it's going down. There's some people living in the back. I was looking at, of course, the people I wanted were living in the back. Anna and Edward down there. And then a dude with the last name of Lewis, apparently. as well. When they get a little more recent and you've got a time period where there are established house numbers, then the house number will be listed. And this can be a way to ferret out neighbors. One of the things that I would also do if I was using a reverse directory, sometimes called a crisscross directory, I would, if I could, get a contemporary map to see where the streets in towns that made sense. Where I'm thinking of the example we're going to use later, Rock Island, Illinois, where there aren't so many names as there's the avenues and the streets have numbered, and it's very much numerical. But if you've got Maple and Walnut and streets with names, if you don't know where they fit together, you'll want to get a map to see where those locations are, because that way you can use the crisscross directory a little more effectively. But that's just one of the things that could be in the back of a directory that you want to take a look, and you'll want to see what's there to make use of it. There could be other things in there that could be helpful. The crisscross directory, the reverse directory, is probably the best thing if it's there, because then you get that neighbors, because the directory is alphabetical, and that's not going to give you the neighbors as easily.
Well, I was going to say, I kind of skipped over that. You're talking about the back of the directory and so forth. The main portion of the directory is usually an A to Z listing of the individuals, sometimes individuals and businesses. Sometimes the businesses are listed in an entire separate section.
True. So what other things are in the back of the directory or inlet that's good for people to look at?
Well, I'm so glad you asked that question, because if you go on to the next slide, we also have, I was curious, not being super acquainted with the city of Reading, since I am a country boy, where do I find this Spring Garden Street? It didn't seem like it was a real big street. Well, one of the things in the Boys Reading directory is that it lists all the streets, and not exactly coordinates, but it gives you where they come from. And in this case, it tells you Spring Garden goes south from 822 Binghamton to the PNRR, the Pennsylvania and Reading Railroad. So that gives me landmarks that I then can easily go to Google Maps, even if if Spring Garden itself, that name may have been changed, but some of the bigger streets and the railroads are still going to be there.
Love that.
Mentioning the abbreviation, that effectively serves as a gazetteer of, a street gazetteer, to use that terminology. Don't ask me how to spell it, but I do know what it means. The other thing you mentioned whatever that railroad was, it's probably some big railroad where you live. I have no clue what it is, but it mentions, the key is it mentions the importance of the abbreviations. And we saw some of those in the earlier entries that Jim had. If you don't know what H and R and whatever other abbreviations mean, when you want to look at the names and all the good stuff that's in there, but look in the front before the names, before the actual directory, there should be a list of abbreviations. Some of them will be pretty commonplace, but there may be some abbreviations that are specific to that location. Railroads and employers are two that come to mind. And if you're not from that area, you're not familiar with the location, they're just going to be jumbled letters. But there should be some sort of guide to the abbreviations. The other thing you want to do when you're looking at the abbreviations is get a copy of that title page too. The year should be on top of it, on top of every page. They usually are, but get a copy of that when you're at that part of it, getting the abbreviations, get that title page so you've got everything as a part of your download of the images or whatever copies you're making at that point in time.
Well, and there are not too common instances, but there are some times when there were competitive city directories where there will be more than one for a city in the year, and then you do want to have a specific source. That in this case it's the Boyd's Reading City Directory. Where there may be a Huff and Puff City Directory for Reading that year too, and it may not. May not have duplicated information. Just like you don't say that you got a death record for somebody, you say that it is an obituary, or it's a death certificate, or it's a death register entry, or it's a tombstone, or what have you.
So you brought up sources. So where are the best places online to actually find city directories?
Yeah, well, this is another time and place thing too. Just like when people ask me, well, what's the best newspaper site? Well, the best newspaper site depends on the particular sites, what they have for the time period you're looking and the place you're looking in. I mean, Ancestry has a collection. As I noted, MyHeritage happens to have a big collection of Reading ones, and a lot of university libraries will have done the city that they're headquartered in. Local
Mm.
libraries may also do that, and there are other sources too, right, Michael?
Yeah, I would look on archive.org to see if they've been scanned and uploaded there. Books.google.com, which somebody mentioned, I think, in the comments. That's the reverse directory we saw for Boston. That's where I happened to find that entry. Um, so they have been scanned and digitized, and it's like Jim said, it's going to vary. Which of the sites is best depends upon where your dead people were living and where they're listed at. Reaching out to the local library is always a good idea, even if some have scanned them, as we've mentioned. But if they're online somewhere, the local librarian is one of the places to reach out to, because they'll know where they're at, most likely.
Exactly.
We were talking about the material in the back of the directory, and Jonathan
Mhm.
mentioned another good thing we don't want to forget. If your ancestor had any sort of hawking his goods to make money, there might have been some kind of advertising in there. That could be and the advertising could be a clue. If your ancestor's occupation is listed,
Yes.
looking for the name of the employer in the directory is also a really good idea. But
And that's very visual, like,
you might even find you might even find an advertisement for that employer that make a good little
yes.
illustration for your family history, or
When I put it on the family reunion board, it's like this little teeny entry for and they're like, okay, who cares? But when they see that big ad for R and Eagle, steel company or something, it makes more sense. So someone told me, I think Jenny, I was talking to Jenny on Facebook, and she said that you can find out which union your ancestor might be in. Have you guys come across unions being listed? I guess that would be like depending on the place you're in.
That would probably have to depend on the place and the time period. The other thing is there could be, we're focusing on city directories, but there could be other directories. I'm thinking of, especially on books.google.com, I've seen, we're kind of getting, without getting too off topic, trade journals and things like that have also been digitized, union magazines, and things of that sort that you could find when you're doing some snooping around in Google Books.
Yeah, there are loads of union periodicals that would have membership lists or lists of new members, obituaries of their deceased, what have you.
And for those of us with rural ancestors, you might find, I found Farm Bureau newsletters and all kinds of stuff online at Google Books, and where great grandma was trying to sell stuff and do whatever.
Great grandmoms really,
well, it was chickens and eggs, and I think they had a separator they had for sale.
My great grandma baked pound cakes, and she sold pineapple soda, and she made ice cream.
we were joking about the rural directories. There are some. The challenge is they're just not as one year right after the other as the city directories are. I mean, the county where I'm from, I think there's one directory in 86. There's a scattering of farm owner directories, but when we're talking about directories, we're trying to catch as many people as possible. And the landowners and even tenant farmers, that doesn't include day laborers and other types of occupations that a lot of us also have a need to find out information about.
Yeah.
Yeah, in the counties that I research in Pennsylvania, I know of an early 1880s Lebanon County directory that was basically a ripoff of the census, so it's not too much additional information. But I also have seen an 1890 Schuylkill County directory, Schuylkill County, Pennsylvania, and that one, on the other hand, is very valuable since we don't have an 1890 census. So it's something to check for. Kind of having your checklist, your toolkit of checklists, to look for.
So let's move on to step 5, which is my favorite step, and it is map it. Let me share that screen.
I think we've got, this is a relatively simple example. This was some addresses from right around the time of the 1900 census. And so there's 4 different individuals here. The nice thing is it's got, for those dudes that were married, it's got their wives listed right after them, which was helpful. 5.5 Avenue. When we see in the next slide, I made a real quick map of this.
Yeah, what's hat and a half? What's in a half?
Well, 5.5 Avenue. I'll say one thing about it first. When you do a Google search, don't put in 5.5. I know 5.5 equals 5.5. And Google, we all think Google's smart, but it did not like 5.5 Avenue because I did it just to be ornery. 5.5 Avenue is, I'm going to try to sound this in a way it doesn't sound snarky, 5.5 avenues between 5th Avenue and 6th Avenue. The alley was made into a street, basically. We got to cut those lots smaller to get more people living down by the river. So I just basically
we have great restaurants in Boston by the river.
Yeah. So, well, Rock Island is not quite like that, but anyway, I just mapped out the locations to see where they fit together, because sometimes if you're familiar with the area, you don't need the map as much because you've got a map in your head. But any location where you're not familiar, it's good to map those addresses out. You can track how. This is a real simple one. The one caveat with that is make sure there's not been a street renaming or renumbering between the time period of the directory and the time period of the map that you're using to create your ancestral little dot map or what have you. Chicago, the exact date eludes me, but it's around 1910-ish. Somebody's probably going to correct me here in 30 seconds in the chat. But there are guides to translate those. But if you're using an 1890 address and a Google map from today, it's not going to work.
And usually,
5.5 Avenue is the least of your problems.
Usually, if you're in an urban area, you'll have a lot of access to a lot of maps.
Right.
And so it shouldn't be too difficult to match up those maps. I didn't think about that because I want to do a nice project to show, like, one person has all of these ancestors in Camden. And I want to just light up the map to show all the places that their ancestor lived, like, for the past, 50 years. And it could be like half the city. I mean,
right. I've got individuals that were tenants in Chicago, and they moved around. And I think they moved every time they got that far behind on the rent. And, because sometimes that happens for one reason or another. But mapping all those out, it was a larger map than that. But city directories were helpful in tracking those because, again, they're giving us information off census years. That if you've got people that moved a lot, that can be helpful. If you're trying to find where they might have gone to school, where they might have gone to church, because if we're looking in a really urban area and you say, well, they lived in Chicago and they were Catholic. Well, yeah, so were a lot of other people, and there's a lot of churches. So the directory is one way. If they were, where were they from 1903 to 1909, and it might have been a whole different part of town, and they might have gone to a different church because of that.
And Jim has really. Go ahead. What are you going to say, Jim? Sorry.
Well, I was just going to say, to Michael's point, the part of the back matter a lot of times is the churches listed.
Right.
And that's going to give you not the churches that may be the ones today or ones way before the time you're looking for, but the actual right snapshot of that time. So.
And this is a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful insurance map, not Sanborn, which I had to see last night, like 50 emails. It's not a Sanborn map, is it? It's not Sanborn. All right. So talk to us about this beautiful Atlas insurance map. What is it? And
well, it's from 1884 in Reading. And so with the help of those previous city directories and also telling us that Spring Garden Street started at Binghamton and went south from there, I was able to locate Mrs. Hiller at 338 Spring Garden. And gives the shape of her house and so forth. So I live about 7 miles from Reading. I can go see this if I want to.
Very cool. And there's a school over here, and I'm sure there's some other stuff around. I love the mapping it.
The other neat thing about the map is if there was a church around the block or around the corner or within 3 or 4 blocks, but you don't know the name of it, then you can look at the map. Or if you've got the modern name of it, you can use the map to see, was that the name in 1880 or 1904 or whatever it was too. There's a lot of little minor clever ways you can use it depending upon what your problem is.
Yep.
Your genealogy problem, not your personal problem.
It looks like you're having a problem with your kitty. Every time I get ready to show the kitty big, kitty's gone.
Yeah, she doesn't want to stand still. She really wants to walk on the keyboard, and she wants to get in the chat and make comments. And
Well, Sue said meow.
I saw
so
that.
Let's go ahead and look at the quick start created for city directories by Michael and Jim. Is one, of course, to determine a place and a time. Step 2 is to go ahead and research the census for clues. Step 3 would be to search for ancestors and others. I don't know if we talked about, don't just necessarily search for your people. Search for people that are considered a part of their fan club, a part of their cluster. Learn what their jobs are. Learn where they worked. Learn where they lived. Step 4 is then to research the rest of the directory. So much juicy stuff all around. And step 5, especially if you're a map lover, is your favorite step, which is to map it. And that is the quick start for city directories. Did you guys have any final tips for city directories? You guys did fabulous. I learned a lot.
I'm going to try to address Judy's question real quick in the chat. I would communicate with a local. She asked about non-Sanborn insurance maps. And I'm kind of guessing based on what I know about Judy. She's talking about Chicago. I'm not sure if there are a lot of those for Chicago, but I would reach out to local libraries or a genealogy society and ask them. Someone there should be aware if there are other non-Sanborn insurance maps. I think Jim is kind of a little bit atypical in so many ways because that looks like a fire insurance map, but it was not a Sanborn one.
Right.
It has that color to it and that look. I know Shamele didn't like it looks like one, but it's got
did I make a mistake and say Sanborn? It was funny.
It's got that look of a fire insurance map.
Yeah, and the thing is, it's billed online as just City of Reading Atlas, and it's only when you get, like Michael suggested, making sure you get a photocopy of the title page that you see it as actually property and insurance City of Reading Atlas.
And I would search the Library of Congress. I would search the Library of Congress catalog and see if it even exists. And one final thing, Jonathan said that the DAR library in DC has a massive collection of directories. He said once they're open, which he'll let us know once they're open, it'll be a great source.
Yeah.
So,
always search the catalog.
I knew that cat was here for a reason.
That was the whole. I've been waiting all day for that. Yeah.
Guys, thank you so much for the city directories, and we will see you guys at the bottom of the hour. So, guys, guess what time it is? It is time for me to fulfill a promise that I made to myself a long time ago, and that was to get Franklin Carter Smith on the show. And I'm kind of embarrassed to say it, but I'm going to share it. When I first had the encounter with Franklin, I didn't know what was going on. All I knew is that Dr. Debbie was acting a little strange. Like, we're always excited to be together, but Dr. Debbie was acting extra. And I said, what is going on, Dr. Debbie? She's like, I can't wait to see Frank. Frank's going to be here. Frank's going to be here. So here he is. What's up, Frank?
Hey. It's so good to see you. And thanks for having me on the show.
It is very, very nice to have you here. Frank is the author of, where is it at? I don't even, wait, hold on. I got to go get it because I'm embarrassed. I don't even have it in my hand. It's a book that I give to Lawnside students when I can. Where is it at? It's right here. Ah, I'm coming back, Frank. I'm not going to leave you by yourself.
I'm scared.
African American, the Genealogist Guide to Discovering Your African American Ancestors, and they have a newer version actually.
It's the same. It's the same book, just different publishers. Same book, different publishers.
Oh, thanks for hipping us up on that. I get my books from Tim Pennick, so if
Same
you
book.
need that book, Tim Pennick with his AA books can hook you up. All right, so without further ado, Frank, today you're going to talk to us about the finding enslaved ancestors. So I'm going to say this up front. I've asked other people to do this, and I've been told no, because you can't do this in a quick start. And so I just want to first say thank you for realizing that there's some level that we can do at a quick start. And so we're going to go ahead and do that. So today, with Frank's help, we have created a quick start for how to find enslaved ancestors. And so I definitely would love for those of you who are watching to let us know where you have enslaved ancestors at and where you're looking for them. We definitely want to hear about that. So, you ready, Frank, to go ahead and get started?
I'm ready. Let's get started.
All right. So, step one we have is to choose an ancestor. All right, you gotta focus. I asked some folks to give me like what they wanted to do, and they gave me like this whole big long litany. Pick one person, because this is dangerous territory. I wouldn't say dangerous, but it's not easy territory that you're going into. So you want to pick one person. Would you agree, Frank?
Yes, and the most important thing here is an ancestor that you've traced back to 1870, that you have actually gone census all the way back. It is important that you first start with one. If you have one that you've already traced back to 1870, that's who you want to start with.
That's where you want to start. Get back to 1870. Most people say research back, but Frank said get your butt back to 1870. Don't even think about it, right, Frank?
You got to work your way back there, though. Don't take any short steps. Just take the time and work them census by census and look at each one of those neighborhoods. This, you know, you have to immerse yourself in each one of those post 1870 neighborhoods and learn what's in the neighborhood and who's in the household.
Frank, you went to the next step. We got to show 1870.
I'm trying. I told you this is a hard subject to get through with this.
Frank loves the community, and we're going to get to that community. So, Frank, you said you have to get back to the 1870 census. So basically, that's just taking it from today or 1940 and just working your way back. And so here you have an example of Eli Hilson. Tell us about Eli.
Eli is my second great grandfather. In 1870, he is in Lincoln County, Mississippi, and he is 50 years old. He's born in North Carolina. He has 4 children. The oldest is 15, which is the age of the children in the household indicated to me that they were a family before the Civil War. So that helps me. That gives me a clue right there that they may be together. I may find them all together. Hopefully I will. And also in the household is Neill Weathersby, who's also born in North Carolina, who's of the age to be either Eli's mother or Neill's mother, his wife Elizabeth's mother. So
and I like how you said that you didn't make a decision. You said could be, because 1870 doesn't show this is the head of the household, this is the wife. We're just, and so I like this Neill Weathersby. You didn't know who this person was before, you didn't know them. Okay. No. And so you've gotten this group back to 1870. And now we want to move on to step 2, which is Frank's favorite part of this whole thing. And I actually enjoy it too, which is to identify the community cluster. So why do you have these slave quarters here, Frank?
Well, if I think what we fail to realize when we look at those communities, those 1870 communities were very similar to what they would have been probably in the 1860 or pre-1865 neighborhood. So what you want to do is think of them as this is where they were. When you're looking at those census pages, look at that slave quarters as a cluster. And when you see in 4 and 5 and 6 families on a census page right next to each other, they may all be living in that same slave quarters. You're not just walking down the street like you would in a city and they are one house here, one house there. These people are in communities that are pretty together. They are right in the same area. So this helps you kind of see what the cluster looks like in comparison to the entire community, which would be 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 pages, 8 pages either side of them. You'll find those various kind of little communities.
So you have some tips here on building the community. Oh, wait. Did I put that in here? Oh, wait, we'll show that later, I think. And so after you build the community, you want to go ahead and learn about the area, which we have as step 4. Sorry, I'm having issues with my technical lady. We want to get back to step 4, which is, I'm missing something. Sorry. So you said that we want to learn about the area. You have something that I absolutely love, which is a map. So tell us about this map and why it's so important.
Maps are very important to help us place our ancestors in a specific area in that county or in that area. And it also helps us identify basically where they were in relation to possible slaveholders. It helps us kind of pinpoint or figure out that location that those people that we may want to investigate as slaveholders may have been and who their neighbors were. This is a map here of Culpeper County, Virginia. And these were some DNA matches of mine that matched pretty highly. And I had been able to basically tie them into this Covington family. And the Covington family had a lot of interactions with the Bowen family. And some of them, these DNA matches were through the Bowen family also. So once I saw this map, whereas in the census, they weren't actually near each other, they were in close proximity to each other through this map. Now, this is a historical map that you can find on the Library of Congress, but these are more, still exist more, or they found more for the upper southern states, like Virginia, maybe North Carolina, Georgia, maybe South Carolina. You may not find as many of them for every county that you're looking for, but you may find some. But an alternative is, if you're in the Deep South, they're all federal land states. So they go the township, range, and section. And there are ways to map these people out using the township, range, section from the land descriptions of those people that you think that may have enslaved them. So you want to look at their deed records and see what property they own and try to map them out using that. There's at the library, and I know we're doing mostly online stuff, but there's a group of books called Family Maps. And
they're online actually, Frank. They're actually online at History Geo.
Yeah, they're on History Geo. I know it's a subscription site, but you can get them at our library. You can see it at our
library. And you can buy the book.
Yeah, and it gives you legal descriptions of the first landowners for that particular county that you're looking at. And it will just plot out exactly where these people were in relation to their neighbors. So that's basically 2 ways of doing it.
So maps are great to actually in my county, Leon County, there is a there's a guy who did his dissertation and everything on plantations in that county. And so he created a map as well. And so I like how you correlated, the census isn't necessarily showing that this person is next to this person. The map will really bring the geography to life.
Yes.
And there's other ways, Frank, of course, to learn about the area. And, I'm an advocate of the bookshelf. And so I asked you for your top 4 books on slavery. And these are the 4, not that this is it, but these are the 4 that you put down. And Ira Berlin, of course, amazing. Frederick Douglass, narrative of the life of Frederick Douglass. Kenneth Stamp, The Peculiar Institution, and Henry Louis Gates. And I'm not going to say Donald's last name correctly. The African Americans, Many Rivers to Cross. And I had asked you why, because when I went to get the links for everyone, to put these links in the show notes for everyone, I noticed that Gates's book was $1.99 on Kindle. And I asked you why, there's so many books, why you included this newer book from 2016 in your list of top 4.
Because to me, it gave you, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, I want to make sure. Because it gave pretty much a chronological. I watched the Many Rivers Crossed as a PBS series, and I like that I was able to kind of see how it progressed. How he progressed through the different times and up until almost the current time. I mean, it gave me a much broader picture. Yeah, you want to know the scholarly history of just the enslavement era. But this was one that I like because, like I said, I was able to sit there and become entrenched in how I saw my people start out, enslaved, and how with the trials and tribulations of Jim Crow and
so to me, it sounds like it's an accessible book for everyone.
Yes, it's accessible. It's accessible also, but I just like the way it was done. I really like the way it was, laid out, and I
want to provide 2 of mine that I love. I like all of that Frank said, love, but I also want to put up the Herbert Gutman, The Black Family and Slavery and Freedom. Like, oh my God, and I would be remiss to not include John Hope Franklin, From Freedom to Slavery. I actually have a friend who just told me the other day that they're rereading this book. So I think that's pretty cool. Also, you want to, get one for your area. This is one for slavery in Alabama. And I told you about the guy who made the maps of the plantations. His name is, this isn't him. His name is Paisley. But this is another one that talks about slavery in Florida. And so definitely get a book and read. That's how you're going to know about this stuff. So we've learned about the area, and now we're going to go and research possible slaveholders. So talk to us about this. I love process stuff. So you have a setup on how to bring together or learn about the white community cluster. So talk to us about that.
When you're trying to identify a slaveholder and you start with your 1870 community where your ancestor lives, and let me give this little disclaimer. No, not all of them live near the last slaveholder, but of all the lines that you're probably able to get back to 1870, you're going to find some who did live near those slaveholders. So what you want to do is sort of map out that community. And I have to use this Excel spreadsheet to kind of list the head of households of the white neighbors. And in it, I chose to use their name, their age, where they were born, where they were in the 1860 census, were they slave owners in 1860, and have a note section. Now, what I did was, this was a DNA connection to the yellow is Carter Robinson, plus in all the yellow is his known family and associates that I identified. The blue generally marks those people that were possible candidates, and the peach were the most likely candidates. And what I did here was I went back and compared the 1860 to the 1870 community and slave schedules and input the information here. And then what you do is you select the strongest and closest candidates and work outwards. So 2 candidates stuck out to me, William Whitehead and Allen Gray, which were nearest Carter. Now, William Whitehead did not have a designation of amount of property that he owned, which would have kind of maybe ruled him out, because you always want to especially list the property, real estate that they own, which is what that census shows. And he was listed as a planter, which I thought, okay, if he's a planter and the rest of these guys generally that don't have anything are listed as farmers, then there's something a little suspicious about that. So when I did research him further, I did determine that he was a major plantation owner. So those were the two people that I was going to research. So this is where this is something you want to do for each of those lines. And if you have several different lines coming from that same area, then you really want to do something like this. And this, you can do a pencil and paper, you know, a legal pad. It doesn't have to be Excel if you're intimidated. I'm not tech savvy. I'm not tech
don't
savvy.
get intimidated by the technology, right? Don't get intimidated by the technology, because if Frank's not intimidated, you can't be intimidated, right? So that is kind of in the beginning. You talked more about creating the cluster with the African Americans, and now you talked about creating a cluster of the slaveholder. And I love how your thing wasn't all about the surname. Like, we get caught up in the surname, and it's really a methodical, you know, neighborhood community search. So hopefully that made sense. I love it, Frank. And it's really kind of like a proximity search, right? Would you agree? It's all about proximity.
And by the way, William Whitehead turned out to be the slaveholder. One of those two people did turn out to be the slaveholder, and I didn't find it in probate records. I found it in a family history of the Whitehead family. I was able to see
that was like, when I looked at your list, he was the one that stood out the most as to why you put him on there. And we got to remember that what someone's property looked like in 1870 could be totally different of what it looked like in 1860. They could have been big balling, you know, in 1860, but the war devastated so many that by 1870 he really didn't have much. But he was big balling, right? In 1860.
Yeah, he was big time, big time.
All right. So another part of the research, we kind of go back to your 1870. And why did we go back to 1870 census?
I wanted to show how I was able to identify Eli Hilson's, my second great grandfather, slaveholder. When I was looking through the pages, the one thing I noticed was this guy named John Martin that lived a household away from him. And he had $2,500 worth of property, more than anybody in the next several pages. But the thing that really hit me was when I looked at the next page. At the top of the next page was a Weathersby in his household. And it was a young female with some young children named Weathersby. So she was 25 and she had young children. So, there's Nisi in Eli's home, and there's this Weathersby here. So I wanted to look more at at John Martin. So and remember, Lincoln County was cut out of several different counties in 1870. So more than likely, they were going to be in another county in 1860. So actually, they were in a mid-county Mississippi. And when I went to the 1860 census page, there he was, Mr. John Martin, with his wife. And his wife had property that as much or more property than he did. And there was a Solomon Weathersby in the household who also had personal property, which was more than likely slaves. And the wife had $15,000 in personal property, which was more than likely enslaved people. So I wanted to look at him further. Did he own slaves? So now he was in the mid-county. So I found him in the 1860 slave schedule. And on the 1860 slave schedule, he was there was John. He started at the bottom of one page over into the top of the next page, and then there was his wife, who had slaves. Solomon had slaves, and there were several other Weathersbys who had slaves. Right on that same page. They were all on the same page. They were all basically almost adjoining each other. And so then I said, okay, clearly there's a relationship between, I can never get her name, Elipharama, something like that.
So
I've
let's
seen it.
talk
Yeah.
about the slave schedule for a second. Look, what is a slave schedule?
The slave schedules, of course, were the recorded with the census, and they showed the age, the color, and the gender of the different slaves that each slaveholder held. Now, they may not be accurate. You cannot just say, okay, I know Eli was 50, so he should be 40. You can never assume that these numbers are going to match. I never, just say, okay, that's definitely my Eli if he's 40 and there's a 40-year-old person in there. But if there's only 3 or 4 slaves maybe and they're all small children, then I'll say, well, that can't be Eli. But when I researched his family, I discovered that they were that in fact his wife, which I had kind of assumed from the 1860 census, had been married previously, and she had been married to Lodwick Weathersby. And these were all her children: Louis, William, and Solomon. And there had to have been a division of property for Solomon to be living in his household with her and have slaves, and for her to have as many slaves that she either inherited from parents or inherited from a probate estate matter. And when I did discover was that.
So hold on. So, all right. So paying attention to the woman really helped to flush this
You
out
have to.
because she had that money and you
have
was
to.
able to come across you were able to find out who her husband was, and it came across this Lodwick, which I'll show you came up with during your research, this inventory and appraisal.
Yes, I did. And I still sent the wrong one. But yeah, yeah, there it is. On there is Eli. And Eli is valued at $700. This was from 1842, the estate of her husband, her deceased husband, Lodwick Weathersby. The second red mark is Betsy, his wife Elizabeth, and a child. And then at the bottom there's Nisi, an old woman. And basically Nisi was 65. So, you would say earlier she may have not been considered old, but who knows? She may have been older than 65. She could have been in her 70s or 80s. This is just a guesstimate because slaves many times did not know their true ages, especially older ones. That would get lost with time. So
where do you get inventory and appraisements? Where do you get those online?
These are the probate records that you're going to find with the courts. And Family Search is a good place to go for probate records. They're free.
Yes.
Do a county search for the state, when you do a catalog search, do a place search and search for the county records. And when the county records come up, they will list all of the records that they have. Some of them may not be indexed, but they've digitized the probate, land, deed records, court records. This is the best place to go to research, and that's where those records were.
Family Search. Sorry about the noise in the background, guys. Let's go ahead. Franklin, that was great. We just did a quick start for finding enslaved ancestors, and here is the quick start. First, you want to choose an ancestor. Just focus on one. You can focus. Then you want to get back to the 1870 census. Don't even try to look for enslaved people until you get back to the 1870 census. Step 3 is to identify the community cluster. Step 4 is to learn about the area. Genealogy requires history as well. You got to be a reader. And step 5 is to research possible slaveholders. That's looking in probate records, looking histories, looking at all those, looking at census. You want to wear those census records out. We always want to get all sexy and look at sexy records, right? Census records are humongous, right, Franklin?
Yes, they are the footprint. They are the footprint.
So that was researching enslaved ancestors. We're going to go ahead and bring back my buddies. Frank, thank you. That was amazing. Is there any last tips before I bring them back?
I just want to say this is quick. Okay. Please don't say that, this was so easy. This took me sometimes years to do. I just tried to capsule it in a way that you may see how you can approach it. I'm
Yep.
not saying that this is easy and this is just these absolute steps will get you there. That's all I have to say.
And
A
you never
disclaimer.
know. You might pick the right planner and then poof, it all opens up. You just have to do the work, right?
Do the work. Exactly.
Thank you, Frank. Let's bring back Michael John Neill and Jim Beidler. And Frank gave us our question for the day. And that is an amazing question. And this question is, which ancestor that you've discovered through research is most inspiring, and why? And keep it short. And I'm going to go first. So for me, it was my great grandfather in Eufaula, Alabama, and he was living at the turn of the century, died in the 30s, and he was his own man, living in an oppressive area like that. He had 160 acres of land. When the prices fell, he warehoused his stuff so that he waited till the prices went back up. And my goal is to figure out how he did it. How did he do it? It's not enough that he did it. I want to know how. So that inspires me. Jim?
I would choose my fifth great grandfather, Conrad Beidler, for the mere reason of the deed that he and his wife wrote out to the next in the line in my ancestors, Peter Beidler, basically giving him the family homestead for a token amount. And it mentions the love and natural affection they had, and how he stayed beyond his time to care for them.
Oh, Michael.
I'm not really sure what to say, but I'm gonna say when I learned a lesson from. I'm not sure he inspired me, but one I learned a lesson from is when you have a loaded shotgun, never be intoxicated, and hit a cow with the butt end of it. Because
only your ancestors.
That's how my third great grandfather died.
Was that the O'Friesians?
No, no. Those Frisians we know better than that. He was from somewhere else in Germany, but I don't know that he was drunk. I do know he was a bar owner, and he had his shotgun all packed up. It's 1850s, and he was mad at this cow getting into his yard. And after he got the gun all packed down, he had a change of heart, and he hit the cow with the butt of the gun. And as the newspaper said, it fired, and he expired.
I'm not. I'm not inspired.
No,
Frank?
I'm not. I'm not either. But there's a lesson to be learned there.
Frank?
My fourth great grandmother, old Maul, and Maul was born in 1760. My fifth great grandmother, she was born in 1760 in Edgecombe County, North Carolina, and I trace her through to 1837. The last document I find in her where she's valued is worth nothing, and she outlived 7 slaveholders.
I'm inspired. I'm inspired. All right, guys, that was great. Like Harriet Tubman said, if I can get it in there, we out. Have a great day, everybody.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Shamele.
Thank you.
Thanks, Frank. Good job.
Thank you.
Enjoyed
Thank
it.
you all.
Good job.
Enjoyed it. Yeah. Always.